Hi Kev here, Tabletop Upgrades, and in this video I'm going to be changing out my laser tube. Now, a note for new viewers, this video isn't intended as an instructional tutorial, and I'm sure there'll be things that you'll find useful and it may be interesting if you're about to change your tube to watch it through. However, disclaimers galore. It's a really dangerous business changing a laser tube with some really high voltages at play here, so you really need to take as many safety precautions as you can. Don't use this as your reference video, and if in any doubt, call an engineer from your laser manufacturer to do the job for you. I've left this machine to discharge for 17 hours before I've intended to work on it, taking all kinds of precautions like rubber matting, safety boots, high voltage tools. Just don't take any chances. It can be really deadly. But if you've made it this far, I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. My name's Kev, I run a laser cutting business. I'm full-time selling on Etsy, my own website, eBay, all manner of different platforms, selling tabletop gaming upgrades and accessories. I've been at it for about 3 years now, and this is the third tube that I've changed. Now, you've stumbled across this video. This is my lean manufacturing channel. So every single day, I make small changes to my setup just to save 2 seconds here, 2 seconds there. And the cumulative effect of all this is that I've got a really efficient operation. I'm able to produce a ridiculous amount of product on just myself out of this tiny little workshop. So if that sounds interesting, check out the other videos I've got on the channel. And also, this isn't my approach, it's from lean manufacturing, originally from Toyota Production System, but popularised in my case from a guy called Paul Akers, who runs an amazing business called FastCap, and I've learned a huge amount from this community. Anyway, enough of the disclaimers. Don't use this as your reference video. I'm not responsible for your safety. Take precautions, use common sense. Here's the laser tube change. So as I go today, I'm going to be making improvements as I go. First one that I've done is I've just labelled up the ports with coloured stickers for input and output. That matches up with, you can see the pipes down there, pink and blue. I'm also going to be doing similar labelling, and the wires are a mess. So next one, also we're going to put one of those quick clamp hoses instead of the Jubilee clip. So the hardest bit is done now, which is turning the bloody thing around to gain easy access. And if you haven't seen the inside of a laser before, this is the laser tube. It's really ridiculously high voltage, it's dangerous. I leave it to discharge any capacitors in the power supply overnight. It's had 17 hours or something before I'm going to go anywhere near it, and even then I'm going to be using high voltage safe tools, safety boots, all the rest of it. Basically the hookups are, we've got a high tension line, we've got a grounding cable, and then all this stuff is the water which flows through to keep everything cool. And it's mad, isn't it, that you've got kilovolt range of electricity right next to water. So I've made the cuts on the cable. I've left it to discharge for 17 hours. I've earthed it to the case. Look how much insulation you've got to put on the high tension cables to prevent arcing through the case. So let's get this changed out. So first, you've got to put all these pieces of heat shrink over the power supply side in reducing size order, because they will be heat shrunk on in order to give a massive thickness of insulation. I've got 2 for the ground side and the rest for the live side. I'm going to strip back the insulation, being really careful not to nick the wire. I've had to attack that one with a scalpel just to gently cut into the silicone sleeving on the inside of the wire and then strip the remainder off. On the tube there's these stickers placed where the brackets are to be held. Now, as far as I am aware, and I've changed a couple of these now, this distance here isn't absolutely critical, but I always think it's a good idea just to take a quick reference measurement. So I'm going to do that now. In my case, that's 63mm to the mirror as measured face on. Like I said, it's not essential, but it is a good little sense check at the end. Once the tube has been removed, this mirror never gets cleaned. So I'm going to give it a clean, and I use these little disposable lens wipes. And I've used those for a couple of years now successfully. And another minor improvement, I have these colour-coded Allen keys, so I've labelled up these bolts with a yellow sticker for next time, because there's a little bit of struggle. I tried 2 different Allen keys before I chose the right one. Next, I undo these bolts, bend up the supports, and I've rotated the tube round just to have easy access to the water inlet. Should be okay, but I tend to tuck a rag underneath just in case there's a little dribble of water. Don't want that getting into the electronics. And with everything disconnected, it can now be rotated back round and carefully removed from the machine. This is the new tube, and for goodness sake, don't forget to take the sticker off the end of the lens. So I found this quite awkward to get in. I had to go front end in first, tilt it down, then get it up over the bracket. And if you look, these, depending on your machine, these bracket marks don't exactly line up with the brackets. And even though I don't really think it matters, that's given me a good reference position, so I can just align that up to 63mm again. So the new tube's in, and one thing to watch out for is to make sure that these aren't clamped inside the inside these mounts, and they're actually just over the top. Now, prior to joining these 2 cables, we've got all of the heat shrink arranged in size reducing order with some silicone tube to go over the top of it. Now I've twisted these together as a side-by-side pair, then turned it through 90 and wrapped it again. There's many tutorials on YouTube where they just leave it at that. My machine supplier recommended I put some solder over the top of it. I've done that twice before, it's worked. Whether it's the correct thing or not, I don't know, but that's what I'm going to do here. So the new one's in place. I've quadruple wrapped them with the heat shrinks, and we've cable tied the cables to the tube very lightly just to keep them away from the case. I suppose the idea of that is that if there is a fault, you could potentially get arc into the case, which is very dangerous. So I've done a final sense check on the different tubes, and we're good to go. So I've got the laser back in. Now we're going to have to make sure that there's no air bubbles in the tube. So we're going to start it up, let the chiller run for a while, and then we'll double check everything. Of course, now is the time to check for leaks. I can feel that they've pressurised. Just tested it, had a quick panic because nothing happened, but then I realised the back guard is open and the interlock kicked in, so fingers crossed this time. Successful. Right in the middle. I'm testing all the mirror positions. We've got a focus beam coming out the nozzle near enough in the middle. It's good enough for me. So that's my tube replacement. I recorded this video for my own reference when I do it next year so I can watch it the night before. I always find it a bit of a stressful process because if it doesn't work, then it's going to be really expensive. A tube's £200 to £300. Decided I wanted to get an engineer out. It's up to 3 weeks to wait. So I'm pretty much relying on doing this first time. I clear all my manufacturing for about 3 days ahead of the tube change, so that if something does go wrong, I've got a little bit of a buffer. But anyway, all's well that ends well. I'm not dead, the machine works, and production continues. So if you like this video, consider subscribing to this channel and check out my website, tabletopupgrades.co.uk, where you can see all the wonderful accessories that I produce for tabletop board games such as Arkham Horror, and miniatures games like Malifaux, Warhammer and One Page Rules.